ticker symbol BRLL may actually still have some upside to go. But I gotta tell you that this is about as complicated as it comes. Let's go ahead and go over those details now. What is up, you guys? Thank you so much for stopping by once again on this fine Sunday. This is ARCa coming at you with a BRLL technicals, raw price action, and statistical thread of analysis. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video with a friend so that you and them could consider joining our trading community in Discord called ARCab. With that said, let's go ahead and dive right into the charts. Okay, so when I mean complicated, I really do mean complicated. So let's go over the statistics first. Okay, so new viewers, volatility is what you're looking at here, represented by this indicator BBWP. Okay, volatility is direction neutral. We pair it with momentum, and in this case, TradingView has the indicator called stochastic momentum. I've backtested this momentum indicator several times throughout many tickers, and I'm getting an average of about 75 to 90% in guessing the accuracy of the direction of the asset, right? So with that said, I just want you to know that I have ran a back test throughout the entire trading history of BRLL on the daily chart in particular. Okay, so anytime that volatility has contracted into extreme levels, which can be below about the 15% mark, so anytime that we have dove into that 15 percentile, I've taken note of that iteration's duration, the upside thrust versus the amount of times that the iterations have guessed the upside versus the downside correctly. The upside correctly versus the downside, right? So that has given us some metrics. So out of a total 16 iterations throughout the daily chart, 12 have been guessed correctly to the upside, giving us an averaged upside accuracy of 75% with an averaged upside thrust of about 112.83% over the span of just over 8.5 days. This is proof of work. So there could be some upside right now. However, that signal hasn't. Well, I mean, it has fired since we have dove into the contraction critical zone of volatility. Great. It has. And momentum has now suggested the upside continuation. However, the other average still needs to correct, which is why I'm saying that there may still be upside to go, since the other average still needs that corrective upside pitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next chart to see what we have. Okay, so this is another indication that we may actually have an upside. Now, particular to the 8-hour time frame, very much a smaller time frame than the one that we were looking at. This is a pennant. Okay, so let's go ahead and just show the properties of the pennant, because everything is kind of aligning pretty well. So we do have the triangle, we have some declining volume, all of the parameters are meeting pretty well. The reason why I have this dotted line here is because there are two probabilities based on how this pennant is being traded. Okay, so in this case, we can actually see that we may be using this trend line here as a connector. We actually may be using this trend line here as well as a connector. And I'm talking about sentiment being or trading it in two different manners, which is entirely okay. It's just I'm saying that there is a type of per se variable here, right? So I have in order for you to catch that price objective per the pennant, you actually take a trend line from the top of the triangle and apply it all the way to the bottom of the triangle's lowest point, right? So then you would apply it to the area of a supposed breakout, which is usually about 75%, but we're already at about 85 if we were to consider breaking out at this point, right? So if we did break out at that point, we're looking at a target of about 13 cents, right? Now, if we were to break out on this same target per the secondary trend line, we can actually see a target of about 10 cents, 10.61. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to the next chart to validate these types of things, to see if there's anything we can do about gauging the upside or downside in the first place. So this is where it starts to get a little more complicated. Okay, so particular to the 3-day chart. So now we're looking at a kind of a macro perspective here. So particular to the 3-day chart, we are building a sense of a bear flag, and it's a huge bear flag. Okay, so now, or an ascending triangle. Okay, the secondary formation that I see forming is a rising wedge. Okay, so this is, both of these are mostly bearish. Okay, and I say mostly because it doesn't mean that they have to break out to the downside. In fact, there are several occasions to where bear flags that have broken out and then faked out and come to the downside, right? So in this case, we have to watch out because the ascending triangle is being built after a downtrend. Okay, so if we were building this triangle, after an uptrend, then that's a continuation pattern suggesting a continuation to the upside. But since it is a continuation pattern and we're building it on a downtrend, then that could essentially mean the warning here is, or the risk is here, that the continuation can be to the downside since it is on a downtrend, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and apply a couple things here. Let's just talk about this first, okay? Because first of all, the first formation. Let's go ahead and talk about this one first, the bear flag. So we are meeting a couple things that are indicating an upside continuation. And what are those? First of all, we broke out of the resistance. Okay, so we have broken out of the resistance. Mind you, 3-day chart here. Every single candle is 3 days long. Okay, we broke out. I mean, great breakout, and we came back, and now we've already validated this area of a newly converted resistance into now a support. Okay, so that's a good sign. Another good sign is that usually when you're building an ascending triangle like this and you have ascending volume, that is an indication of a breakout pending. Okay, and I'm talking about particular to the upside. So the signs are looking good per this triangle. But please remember that the trend or the sentiment behind this formation usually leads to the downside. Okay, so now adding the percentage, the upside thrust based on the statistical backtest of 112.835, we actually can be put right at about 13 cents, which is confluent with a lot of targets here. First of all this was support. All this was resistance. So it is an area of interest. All this was support, support, support. So we have a pretty good area of interest here, and now it's actually leading very close. It's actually suggesting just a little bit, passing the 1.618 into the 2 fib, just under the 2.272 at 1368. Okay, now if we were to imply maybe the 10% breakout. I'm sorry, the breakout that we're talking about regarding the smaller, the alternate line. So this 10-cent breakout here, right? So meaning the trend line from here down to this point here. Let's go ahead and take a look at that positioning there. So that actually takes us to between the 1.272 and the 1.618. Okay, and that target, of course, like I said, is very close to a 10-cent mark. Okay, so now if we take a trend line now, this is kind of the way we can measure the upside based on the breakout of a bear flag. Okay, so we can take a trend line from the point of breakout to the lowest point of the triangle, and then we apply it to the top of the triangle because that's where we're going, right? The implied target is essentially close to 10 cents, which is already very close to that to this suggested target, which is per the pennant's smaller trend line. Okay, so we do have some confluence there, which is good. There's another thing that we should actually take into mind here. Okay, so let's go ahead and dim now this bear flag and take a look at this rising wedge. Okay, so the rising wedge is doing something very interesting, okay, which could lead to a macro bottom and which could be in accordance to the nature of a bear flag in general, how it usually leads to the downside. If you can see here, we have actually continued on that ascent. We broke out of that rising wedge. We came back up and tested the newly converted support into then a resistance. And now we have, capitulated and then came back up, and now we're testing it again as a resistance followed by some downside. Okay, now if we did consider the breakout move of the bear flag right over here, the trend line, you can actually see that that trend line leads right into the resistance yet again. Okay, so meaning that there could be a limited upside followed by a capitulation all the way to the downside. Okay, so now particular to the larger bear flag, the take profit for this for short sellers is essentially the beginning of the formation itself, which is suggesting 2 zeros and 1 zero, not even a cent. Okay, so we have to be very careful with what's happening here. So let's go ahead and now. Another thing is that connect if you actually connect the trend line from the rising wedge into a different manner, maybe like the bear flag, we can actually see. Let's go ahead and do it like this. There we go, connecting this point and this point to the very beginning of these points here. You can actually see that implied breakout leads right, I mean exactly, to the resistance of that rising wedge. Okay, which usually means there's a rejection here and then followed by a continuation to the downside. Now that doesn't mean that it can't wick all the way up to 13 cents, before essentially just failing it all the way. So this is very complicated. BRLL is actually a play that I probably would stay away from, because it's just, my edge is just, it's meeting it, I guess, but I see so many signs of the downside also playing into effect here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the RSI, as the RSI is also very complicated. So in this case, divergence, right? We're going to look at divergence. Divergence is the opposition of price action versus momentum, and in this case, momentum represented by RSI. Pardon me. And RSI right now has pivoted towards the upside. It has given us two new drives of regular bullish divergence, and of hidden bullish divergence. And usually hidden bullish divergence happens, or it does happen, when momentum is suggesting lower lows, which is from the pivots down below, right? We have lower lows, and the price action is making a series of higher lows, just like this here on the two green trend lines. Okay, so there's another thing happening here, though. There are bearish divergences stacking, and those regular bearish divergences are actually moving alongside the bullish divergences, maybe suggesting a type of channel towards the downside. It could be a regression. But like I said, it's just, this is super tough, very complicated. The pivot that we're now facing in, confirming these two drives of hidden bullish divergence, it's not that strong of a pivot. And I understand that we're right at the border of bull weakness versus bull strength, and that usually means that we're going to be gravitated towards the upside. I get that, but as long as we do maintain ourselves within this shallow area and the deep area of both the bull weakness and bull strength, we are suggesting some sideways trading. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open up a multi-pane so that's to see if we can just gauge a deeper edge. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the 30-minute immediate short-term time frame. You can see that the 30-minute is suggesting sideways trading, just like what we were talking about now. The bi-hourly is still suggesting some sideways trading as well, slightly bullish on the moving average, which is the pink line, 14-day simple moving average. The purple line is the RSI signal. 6-hour time frame suggesting that sideways trading as well. Now, both the bi-hourly and the 6-hour are landing right in the middle of all of the zones. And the daily time frame is also suggesting some sideways, slightly bullish, slightly bearish. We could actually see some limited upside before finding resistance at this 14-day moving average before continuing on to the downside, just like this iteration happened on December 30th. Okay, so that's another indication of the limited upside that I'm speaking of within this. Okay, so and now let's just move up another time frame. Let's go up to the bi-daily. Bi-daily is still suggesting some upside as well. It is right at that border between the bull weakness and bull strength. 3-day is suggesting sideways trading. sideways probably on the 5. Okay, 5 days still suggesting upside as well. The pivot is not so strong though, and the moving average is also not pivoted so strong. And I believe the weekly would be the area we're looking for eventually. Okay, yeah. So the weekly time frame is suggesting downside. Bi-weekly is also suggesting downside, and likely the monthly too. Yeah. So yeah. So the upside and sideways trading may actually be for for a few weeks. So this can actually take some time to really fulfill whatever is happening here. Maybe range trading within this wedge until we finally reach that weak mark, and then we capitulate to the downside. Okay, so I would express a lot of danger within this, and just to remind a lot of people here, what my mentor said once was that if you can't find the edge, if you can't find your edge within the trade of the asset that you're looking on, sometimes the best way to make money is to keep the money, to stay powder, to keep that dry powder for a better play. All right, so I would suggest a lot of caution on this. Please know that I'm not a financial advisor. Take whatever I do show and iterate within these videos as just a form of entertainment, as I can't suggest for you to buy or sell any assets. Please do your own DD and everything will be just fine, okay, you guys? But if you need to get in touch with me, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll leave the links on the description below, including the Discord, the ARCab trading community, and the Twitter. Okay, you guys, don't fall for the scams on the comments as they are saying to WhatsApp me and stuff. I do not have a WhatsApp, and I will certainly never give out my phone number just like that on the comment section. And I will also not message you first unless you are a Crypstex indicator holder. Okay, so please be very wary about those things. Okay, you guys. But with that said, I wish you well a very good night, and I will catch you at the bell mañana. Adios.